There's so many amazing stories with so many amazing lessons. And this, well, this is one of them. So the story goes that one day there was a boy named Emmanuel. Now, Emmanuel had some pretty bad habits. Now, if you're looking at the word habits and you're wondering, what does that mean? Well, a habit is when you do something so much and it just becomes a part of you. Well, Emmanuel's bad habits were lying and sometimes he would steal. Now, this made his dad very, very worried. So, one morning, his dad had an idea. He called Emmanuel over and he said, "Hey, Emmanuel, how are you doing?" And he said, "I'm fine, Dad." And he said, "Okay, Emmanuel, let us go on a hike today." And Emmanuel says, "Okay, awesome," because Emmanuel loved hiking. So as they got ready, Emmanuel was busy singing to himself, "I'm going on a hike, I'm going on a hike." And he got his clothes on and he got the right shoes, and soon they were on their way. Now, as they had started hiking, his dad saw like a little tiny little bud of a plant that had started growing from the ground. It was like the seed had just started growing out of the ground. And his dad said, "Okay, Emmanuel, can you pull that out the ground? Let's see what happens." And Emmanuel says, "Okay." So Emmanuel pulled it out of the ground and says, "Here it is, Dad." He says, "Okay, cool. Let's continue walking." Emmanuel says, "Oh, is that it?" Says, "Yeah, that's it." Okay, so then they continued walking, and Emmanuel was singing his hike song, "I'm going on a hike." And as they continued, his dad happened to see a small baby plant that had just started growing out of the ground. And he said, "Okay, Emmanuel, try to pull that one out." He said, "Okay." Then Emmanuel kind of struggled and pulled it out, and he said, "Here it is, Dad." And his dad said, "Okay, great, let's continue walking." And Emmanuel said, "This is kind of weird. Anyway, I'm on a hike." And he continued walking, singing his hiking song. As they continued going, his dad saw a bush. And his dad said, "Okay, Emmanuel, now take this bush out." And it was about this big. So Emmanuel said, "Okay, but this is going to be a little more difficult." That's okay. No, it's fine. You can take your time. So Emmanuel started digging around and pulled out that bush. After like 10 minutes of struggling, he says, "Here you go, Dad." He said, "Okay, cool. Let's continue walking." Emmanuel says, "But I just did all, it's very difficult." He says, "Yeah, no, let's continue walking." So Emmanuel says, "Okay." And he continued walking, singing his hike song, but it was a little more quieter now because he was getting tired. Now, as they continued walking, his dad stopped him and said, "Okay, Emmanuel, here is the final thing. You see that tree over there?" And in front of him was a huge, tall tree. And he said, "Yeah." And his dad said, "Guess what I'm going to ask you to do?" And Emmanuel says, "I hope it's not picking that tree out of the ground." And his dad said, "Yeah. I need you to pick this tree out of the ground like you did that small bud and the small plant and the small bush. I need you to do that." But it was difficult even for the bush. It's going to be impossible to pull this one out. And Emmanuel's dad got on his knees and looked at Emmanuel in his eyes and said, "Emmanuel, this is the same thing with habits. When you have a habit and it just began, it's very easy to break or feel like you can just stop it and pull it out and never do it again, just like the small bud. But as the habit grows, it becomes like the small plant, and then it becomes like a bush, which is difficult to remove. But in the end, if you continue with the habit, it becomes like this big tree, and it becomes almost impossible to remove. So Emmanuel, you have all these habits that you have started, and it's a good thing that they're still small because you can easily break them, but don't let them get to this big tree-like habit, and you need to remove them still while they're small little baby bud habits." Well, Emmanuel realized that You know, even though the habits are like the buds, he needs to remove them right now and stop them while they're still small and easy to get rid of. And I hope that you learn that if you have a bad habit, don't let it become so big that it becomes almost impossible to stop. Now, I hope you've had as much fun listening to this story as I've had telling the story. Until next time, bye.